We are excited to walk you guys through some features in Asana that can really help you just maximize productivity when it comes to your projects. We're specifically going to focus on launching projects well, then managing those projects, and then tracking those projects. So let's dive in. A couple of statistics just to get us started off with. A lot of the time what we find is there is time wasted on work about work. That's kind of how Asana likes to talk about it. We spend so much time doing things that aren't really the skills that you were really hired for. So there was a study done. This is based on a 2022 study called the Anatomy of Work that found that only 27% of an employee's time is actually spent on tasks that require real skills. So we definitely want to have most of our time spent towards the things that are important to our work. So we want to talk about how we can really maximize that. On the flip side, this study found that 60% of an employee's time is spent managing that work about work instead of actually doing it. So kind of a scary statistic there. And then lastly, when talking to actually employees about how they feel about work, 70% are saying that they do want better processes so that they can achieve their goals, so that they can actually do the work requiring skills that they were hired for. So how can we help this? This is something that Asana really seeks to improve and to equip people with. So before we dive into the specific features in Asana, we always like to start with this visual representation. It's called the Pyramid of Clarity or the Work Graph Data Model. And this really shows us how everything in Asana is connected from the very bottom of our tasks to the top of our company mission. This is what's going to help us reduce that work about work where we don't have to worry about copying information and downloading it and putting it into an Excel and then into an email and then forwarding it and then re-downloading. We want to decrease that. We want to create a space where we have one single source of truth that we're all sharing and we can all collaborate on more seamlessly. So what this pyramid of clarity is showing us is that at the bottom of the pyramid, we have tasks. So these are going to be our action items. Who is doing what and by when, where we can really give clear instructions to our team. That next layer is going to be projects. So Asana projects are going to contain tasks. That is our task list. And something that is possible in Asana is that one task can live in multiple projects. So when I spoke earlier about having to copy information and forward it in a disjointed way where there could be errors or the information might have changed by the time it gets somewhere, what this allows us to do is to share information in one space where that information is always live. So that's called multi-homing in Asana, a super powerful feature. Next up in our pyramid is going to be portfolios. So instead of having to manually create a way to track all of our different Excel files and bring them into one master tracker with forms and import ranges and all sorts of complicated formulas, an Asana portfolio is going to do that automatically for us. It's going to pull up those projects. That's what these lines are showing us. It's going to be a reporting on projects. What is the weather of my projects? Am I globally on track? Am I off track? Do I have overdue milestones and whatnot? And we're going to take a look at that today. And the layer above is going to be goals. So you can state your company goals within Asana. And again, because we want to create a single source of truth and what we do on a daily basis affects how we achieve our company goals, we can attach those goals to projects and tasks within Asana. So all of that progress, all of that reporting is going to happen automatically. And that is all going to help us achieve our company mission. That's just a quick visual representation of the architecture in Asana. And as we get into some of those details, keep this visual in your mind. Okay, so how can we launch projects with more efficiency? I'm going to talk about a couple of ways that Asana is going to help us with that. So right off the bat, we need to launch projects, which means we need to have a set of information so that we know what this project is about and have important dates, have important milestones, have important pieces of information. So we can launch this project by using a form. so that this process is streamlined and you're always collecting the same information every single time, and you're making sure you're getting all the information that you need from the beginning. So we can do this with a form in Asana. I have this form already filled out here where I have a couple of different types of questions. That's the person's name, what department is requesting this project launch. And this project launch, I'll take a second to say, this can be any type of project launch. It can be a construction project launch. It can be a creative request. It can be simple turnaround projects. So any type of project where you are needing to collect information in order to kick something off, we can use this form. We have drop-down questions, we have date questions, we can put in long-form text, we can ask about a budget, we can have multi-select, and we can even attach files. So you can launch this project by asking required questions, including optional questions, so that you make sure you're getting all of that information you need to get started. So someone will have the link to this form that is available online. That's what we're seeing up here. And I'm going to click submit on this form. What this is going to do is this is now going to create a task in Asana for me to take a look at this project launch request. So I'm now in Asana and I'm in this project called Project Launch Requests. And what you'll see is this new task that just populated right here, Valentine's Day promotion. We've got Valentine's Day coming up, so we have something we wanted to prepare for. What I want you to notice is that some of the information that was in the form we just filled out is now populated in these fields over here. I got my budget, I got my project manager, and I got the department that was requesting. When I open up this task, everything that was asked in the form is also inside of this description box. And I even have a link to which form was used for this submission, and then the attachment that I might have attached in my form submission. You can allow multiple attachments. So right off the bat, I can really collect all of this information, really streamlined, without a bunch of meetings, without a bunch of back and forth. And I can go from here and I can say, okay, this is a new request. I have pretty much what I need. I'm going to move this into my understudy, and I'm going to take time to review that and make sure it has all the components. If I do need to have a follow-up discussion, I can do that with the person who submitted this form. But eventually, what we want to happen is we want to turn this into a project. So if this Valentine's Day promotion, I have reviewed this, I've approved that we can launch this as a project, I am going to actually move that into my approved section of this project. And again, you can create all sorts of different phases or stages that you might need your project requests to go through. I'm going to go ahead and move this, for the sake of our discussion today, into this approved section. I move this into the approved section, and what I want you to notice is I had this little lightning bolt go off, and I see down here I have one rule running, and this rule is actually converting that task into a project. So this, depending on how large your template is, this may take a minute or 2 minutes to actually convert that into a project. And so I'm going to show you that. Let's take this other example here. This was converted into a project. I can see that it says converted to project right here. We even have this new icon really alerting me to that. And if I open up this task, we can see here the link to the new project that was created. So I'm going to go into this new project. I have now kicked this project off, and I have created this. And what you can see here is that this was all created automatically for me. So I have launched this project with just a few clicks. I've created an entire process with assignees, due dates, custom fields filled out, estimated time. And if you can create this from a template so that you don't have to spend tons of time creating this manually every single time. You're also going to reduce error by using a template. And again, we don't have Excel sheets that might have been modified, or again, maybe we had some import ranges or some custom formulas that might break in the process of duplicating and storing in a new location. This is all going to be done automatically for us, and we only had to use a few clicks. So this project template is super powerful to make sure that we are saving that time and launching that project as quickly as possible. So if we go back and take a look at how we are launching projects more efficiently, we are using forms to standardize our process and to collect that information, not only as quickly as possible, but in the most efficient way, and ensuring we're getting all the information we need every single time. Then we're going to use projects to then really outline the full process that that project might need, developing that full task list, giving people assignments. And then as a part of that, we're using project templates, so that process happens automatically for us, and we're gaining time so we don't have to create that structure every single time. It's much easier to modify or maybe delete some tasks that don't apply than feeling like you have to build out an entire process every single time. So our goal here is that we're reducing meetings that go back and forth. We might have to have multiple meetings collecting various information. We're reducing Excel files to reduce manual errors and also just access to those files and downloads and uploads. And then we're reducing the amount of copy and pasting because we're using those project templates. All right, so our next step is then how do we manage these projects more efficiently? So let's go back to our project that we were talking about that was created from our project template. And what I want to point out here is we have a lot of different ways that we can view this project. So depending on what you might need to manage at any point in time, of course, priorities shift over the course of a project. And looking at this project from a list view created by different weeks of what's going on, we might want to take a look at this in a timeline view. And this can be done simply at the click of a button. So this is something that Asana has created. You don't have to create different versions. You don't have to sync to a Google Calendar, although that is a feature that's available if you prefer. But this will do this automatically for you. It can create this awesome timeline based on the due dates of our tasks, where we can really see how those tasks are falling one upon another. We can even drag and drop dependencies if we need to. And we can see how those dependencies affect each other. Not only is there a timeline view, there's also a Gantt view. So if you are more familiar with the Gantt view type of project management, again, Asana is going to create this Gantt view automatically for you. So if I need to make this a couple of days instead of just one day, you can see that as I change that due date, it's going to create that Gantt view automatically over here on the right, and it's going to fill out my duration column here. There's also a calendar view, if that's how you prefer to view your projects. You can see this as a week view or a month view, where you can scroll through the months and see what's upcoming and going on. There is also the board view. I will confess it's my least favorite view. I am a list girl. I love the list view, but everybody works differently. And that's what I love about the customization of these different views in Asana, is that everybody can kind of work the way that they want to. And if you have a view that you prefer, you have all of these available to you with really no work required from your part. Not only that, I'm still going to talk about some custom views. If you are a manager and you're having a weekly meeting to check in on how this project is going, maybe we want to focus on each person's assignments that's upcoming in the next week. That's what our weekly meeting is for, is where are you at on past due tasks or things coming up in the next couple of days. We can also create that, again, with just a few clicks, no complicated formulas, by regrouping this project. Let's regroup it by assignee. You can see you have a lot of options here. I'm just going to show you by assignee, and I'm going to put a filter on due in the next week. So with just a few clicks, I have now completely rearranged this task list so that in my weekly meeting, we can check in on each person who has assigned tasks and ask how it's going. Are we going to achieve these due dates? Do we need to push anything out? And if this is something you're doing on a weekly basis, we don't have to create this and click. We don't even have to click every single time. I'm all about saving clicks. So if you are finding yourself creating this view on a regular basis, we can actually save this as an individual tab. And I'm going to call this due next week. I can put a name on that tab. I can drag this tab to the front. I can keep it in the middle. However I might want this to appear on my views at the top of my project, I can do this. And you can continue to go from here. You can really create these custom views for yourself depending on how you're using this project, what other people might be coming in here, you can preserve both your default as separate from creating these saved views at the top. Okay, second, let's talk about how we communicate about all of these various tasks. So most people are used to emailing about work or sending messages through various chat platforms, whether that is Slack or Teams or the Google chat, all sorts of options. And while I will say that as Asana consultants, we do have Slack ourselves for emergency types of conversation, we make sure that any discussions about work items actually happen within Asana tasks. So what you'll see here is, let's say that we need to talk to Larry about the email invitees. Maybe we see it's past due. Maybe we need to change the date. We want to know if he got it done. When you open up each of these tasks, you'll see that there is an area at the bottom where we can post a comment. So those comments can be questions, they can be information, we can attach files and comments. So if we want to have a discussion with Larry about this particular task, rather than starting a new email thread or posting in a chat where there's so many different conversations going on, we can centralize conversations about work on the Asana task. And this is super helpful when you need to go back and find information. So for whatever reason, maybe you changed the list of email invitees. If you had that conversation in an email or you had it in a chat message where there was a lot of other discussions going on, it's a lot harder to find why you changed it or when you changed it or what the final file was. Rather, if you centralize that conversation and you have that here on the task, you have this centralized place to find those changes, find those discussions, and easily find any files that pertain to this task. So comments are super helpful when it comes to collaborating with your team, not sending out emails to way more people than necessary, focusing on just the people that are relevant to this particular task, and then centralizing that communication. And then the last piece I'm going to talk about when it comes to managing projects is status updates. So whether you love status updates or they are the bane of your existence, status updates are of course necessary. This is going to be something that we will always still have to do. So the goal is not to eliminate status updates, but to make them easier to post, easier to find, and spending the least amount of time having to pull together all of this information about how your project is going. So that's already improved if we're using an Asana project to track everything going on with our project. And so when it comes to letting the team know how this project is progressing, there is a status update feature in Asana up here at the top, right where you see on track. That's telling me the status of my project. And so if I need to update this status, whether that's something I update weekly or monthly, that's something for your team to decide. I am going to say, you know what, this project has actually shifted to at risk. So I'm going to mark this at risk. And it's going to open up this page here where I can post a status update. So it is going to create some headers for me that I can either modify or I can delete altogether. I can add new headers. So maybe I want to have a section for blocked items. What you can do here is you can simply type in information to provide more context. You can even tag specific tasks from your Asana project. Again, we want to focus on single source of truth so that this data is real-time data that you can see and is not going to be outdated by the time somebody reads this or sees this. So I've tagged here an actual task from Asana. If I need to tag another one, I use my @ sign and I start typing in the name of that task that I want to share. There's my create list of email invitees. This is late, I can tell. And if I hover over that, it's telling me who it's assigned to. So you can build this project status update however you want to. You'll see on the right-hand side here that you can see the previous update. So if I had provided information that I wanted to reference for my next status update, super helpful to be able to see exactly what you said last time. You can compare and contrast. And then additionally, you can actually drag over what are called highlights. And these are actual tasks from Asana. So you see here that I actually have already dragged over one of these highlights. It's called upcoming milestones. So this is telling me that I have 2 upcoming milestones. This is a January 30th milestone, and the event is intended to be completed by February 3rd. If I wanted to see which tasks were completed in the past 2 weeks, I could even drag that over. I can see here, it says 0 tasks because I just created this project, and so I don't have any completed. But if there were any, I would be able to drag this over into any of my sections. It's going to generate that in my highlight. And so once I have finished this, I've dragged over any charts that I want to. This is the extent of the chart list. Just to be clear, we have these 6 options here. I have up here that it is notifying 4 different people. I can add additional people if I want to, and then I can post that status update. So now you'll see back here, this went from on track to at risk. And if I click on my status right here, view latest status update, I can click on that status update. And this is where I can pull the history of all those status updates. So the last time we posted was January 23rd. Now we're having another post of at risk. This becomes another area where we can have a discussion if we need to talk about the status update and whatnot. So next time you're ready to post a status update, again, you click on the status here and you select what your status is. I will make a quick comment to show you that you can also draft status updates with AI. Again, if you want to utilize that feature to save time, it will read the contents of your project. You can provide it a guidance if you want it to follow a certain structure. And that's another way to really save time and also standardize some of these status updates. Beautiful. So those are my recommendations when it comes to managing your projects more efficiently and effectively. So we are trying to save time by reducing the number of Excel sheets and filters that you're having to manually create and manually update, and you have that risk of errors that are happening, whereas we have automatic and customizable views in Asana. We're trying to reduce the amount of emails. I know we all want less emails in our lives. Reduce the amount of chat messages that are going back and forth, and really centralize locations on tasks so that we can find that information easier, and we can also collaborate with the right people at the right time. And then lastly, we're trying to reduce PowerPoints, reduce meetings, again, to just reduce that amount of time that's work about work. We want to quickly post status updates that has the important information that we need, but again, pushing out the information so that we can all go back to focusing on the tasks that really matter. Awesome. And so then lastly, we're going to talk about tracking all of these projects, because of course, we're probably going to have more than one project at a time. So if we want to focus on our one project, this is wonderful. But what if we're managing 15 different projects at a time? I don't want to have to open up every single project, scroll through that list, figure out if things are behind or off track. That is what portfolios in Asana are going to do. So if you think about the pyramid of clarity, we're going from tasks to projects. Now we're going one layer up to portfolios. So I'm going to shift our example a little bit, and I'm going to get out of our winter sales event project. And I'm going to talk about a different team that's working on launching events in different cities. So in this team, they are launching events in Sydney, Tokyo, New York, and London. So when I'm looking at my team, I'm not really getting information about if these projects are on track or off track, and if I have overdue tasks and whatnot. That's what a portfolio is going to do for me. So I have created a portfolio for those tour events. And you'll see here, we'll see that my Valentine's Day promotion got added here. So that's the new one we were just practicing with. But you'll see here, those 4 shows have been added. And now what I'm seeing at a glance is who's managing those shows, the latest status update of each of those, if there's connected goals within our Asana organization, that quick check on overdue tasks, if I have milestones past due. And if we keep scrolling off to the right, we can continue to add more context if we want more information quickly at our fingertips about this global view of how the project is progressing. So this is much less about our action items at the task level and much more about globally if this project is going well and if we need to dive into the granularity of the task list. So you'll see, you also have our group, sort, and filter options, just like we were having the project view. We do have a timeline view of our portfolios as well. I can zoom in if I want to have a better view or if I have a fewer number of milestones. And so I can see quickly, something that's standing out to me on the screen is that New York really is pretty off track. We need to figure out what's going on. We've got 2 milestones that are super past due. If I hover over this milestone, I can see that the registration campaigns are supposed to launch tomorrow. So we're about to have a 3rd milestone that's past due. So this timeline is really giving me a quick insight into New York is off track. What do I need to do to focus on this? So this is the timeline view of a portfolio. And then we also have the dashboard view, which is going to give us some KPI, just quick kind of data points. So I have set up this dashboard so that I can see in a chart version how these projects are doing and anything else I might want to track. So I'm seeing the sum of the budget by project. I can see what we're doing regarding by status updates. I'm seeing incomplete tasks by project, so we're all kind of tracking here. I can even track estimated time by assignee. So again, all of these charts are coming from the data that's within your projects. And so I can roll this up into a dashboard so that, again, without having to go into the granularity of the task list of each project, I can get a quick check, quick temperature on which project might be off track. Or if I have maybe a particular employee who has a lot of overdue tasks, maybe they need some help, we need to redelegate. That is what this dashboard is going to do for us. So if you have something like that, you have a data point that you want to be able to see quickly at a glance, we can create that chart on the dashboard. We have all sorts of chart styles. We have all of our filters available. We can really create that chart on your dashboard and have that data point to quickly check and see how it's going. There is also the workload view available in portfolios where we can see each user who has been assigned tasks, and I can see how those tasks are falling on a timeline. So Larry is working on tasks within Sydney, Tokyo, New York, and London. So he's got tasks across all 4. And I can see if he's overloaded. Maybe he has too much going on a particular day. Again, if I need to redelegate or just want to check in and make sure that my employees are doing well and they aren't underwater and needing some help. Wonderful. So to recap, we are tracking our projects by using portfolios to centralize that information, as well as to automatically create a report on how our projects are progressing on a global level. So we don't have to go into the granularity of the task list. And also, we are reducing our time spent in Excel, just creating kind of a master tracker. Again, those complicated formulas or import ranges that can break, or if we have permissions that aren't set correctly. Asana is going to do this automatically for you. It's going to automatically create that portfolio. You can create all sorts of ways to regroup, to filter, to sort. And additionally, we are reducing the amount of time spent manually creating PowerPoints because we have all of that data within Asana. We have it within our projects, within our tasks. And so we can quickly create those dashboards to really analyze that performance and check in on if there's something that is not going well or going really well that we want to celebrate. So all of that is going to really help make sure that your projects are moving along the way that you need them to. So here we are. We're already at our question and answer. So feel free to share any questions in the Q&A. I'm sure Thaisa has already been answering some of those in real time. But if there are any questions that you'd like answered live, do post those. I do see one. What is the best method for viewing all tasks across projects for staff meetings so we can have visibility into everyone's work in a single view? That is a great question. What I would recommend, whoops, I went the wrong way. I have 2 options for you. So if we go back to our field marketing team that I was talking about earlier, where we were tracking Sydney, Tokyo, New York, and London, we actually created another project called Weekly Team Meeting. So when I open up this weekly team meeting, this is actually utilizing that multi-homing capability where if we need to discuss something in a meeting and we need to check in on different people's tasks, we can multi-home that into our meeting project. So what this project column is showing me right here is that I've pulled in a task from my London show. I've pulled in some tasks from Tokyo, from New York, from Sydney. So this is everything that I want to make sure to discuss in my meeting. And maybe once we're discussing it, I can move it into ongoing, etc. So what I see oftentimes is actually creating a project in Asana to serve as your meeting agenda, and then utilizing that multi-homing to kind of flag priorities and flag things that you want to discuss. So that's one way that you could do it, is create this dedicated Asana project. Secondly, what you could do is you could utilize this global reporting, where we can create essentially a dashboard about that workload. So I am going to create a new dashboard to discuss this briefly. So when I create this new dashboard, this is essentially a blank space to create charts. So I'm going to create a custom chart, and you want to see the tasks. You're essentially asking the tasks by assignee, which ironically is the first chart that gets defaulted to when you create this. So this is going to take, if we look on the right-hand side, we are reporting on tasks from the entire workspace. That's what I do. This is our workspace. So you have the option here. I want that report on all of the tasks across the entire workspace, or I can focus on a particular team. Maybe I just want to focus on that field marketing team. So I don't need everywhere in the organization. Again, if we follow that same train of thought, maybe you want specific projects. So if I want to specifically list, I want to focus on my winter sales event and maybe that Valentine's Day promotion that we created earlier. So again, this global reporting allows you to kind of customize what you want to see. And my last point that I'll touch on here, I created this as a bar chart, but there were multiple options. So again, you have some different types of charts you could set up here. But what I want to take you to is that this is clickable. So if we need to check in on Sergey, we can click on Sergey and it's going to create this list where we can see everything that's assigned to him. So I would explore those two options. Okay. Can the dashboard view of a portfolio or project be exported as a PowerPoint? Great question. So the dashboard that I showed you on the portfolio, it is available at the project level. So I did not touch on that earlier, but yes, thank you for just calling that out. First of all, you can access this dashboard at the project level. So of course, this is data just about our projects. It is not possible to export any of this project dashboard. What you can do is that individual charts themselves, you can download the individual image of these charts or copy the image, and you could paste that into a PowerPoint. It hurts my heart, of course, to want to encourage you to export to PowerPoint because ideally the goal is that you're using this live information to make sure it's real-time data, but I understand it's impossible to 100% get out of PowerPoint. So if you needed to pull in a particular chart, you could do that one at a time. Regarding the dashboard at the portfolio level, it is not possible to export the dashboard as a PowerPoint. However, if you have the enterprise tier of Asana, so there are a few tiers, if you're not familiar with them, there's free, then we have starter, then we have advanced, then we have enterprise. If you do have the enterprise tier of Asana, you do have the option to actually export this portfolio into a PowerPoint, into a PDF, or into a CSV. So I would encourage you to explore those options if you have the enterprise tier. But please note that the export is of the list view. It is not of the dashboard. Okay. Someone asked about workflow, so I will briefly cover that. So the workflow is a tab that's available. When I was going through these various tabs on the previous project about how you can click through and see these projects in different ways, there is a tab that's called workflow. And this workflow tab is essentially a way to visualize automation within your project. So if you use this project, this is usually most helpful when your project is about an intake process and a single task is going to move through different sections, and therefore you want to attach automation. So when it's in section, needs analysis, and you want to assign it to a certain person, and you want to have a certain subtask, all of that automation. This is essentially a way to visualize the workflow that one single task moves through this entire project. So if your project is not one task that moves through a process, the workflow tab will not apply. But if it is, then you can use this to kind of think through, okay, what triggers the arrival of a task in my overview section, excuse me. And so then when I hit more triggers, it gives me a list of recommendations, or I can say custom trigger. And essentially this takes me to the rule builder. And so then I create this rule. And then when I want to find that rule later, I can come to my workflow tab and I can see everything that's moving the task automatically into the overview section. So then that next phase is, okay, well, once it's in my overview section, what do I want it to do automatically? I want to assign someone. I want to add collaborators or more actions. I want to complete the task, add a comment, etc. So this really helps you set up automation as you're moving through different sections, as a singular task is moving through different sections of a project. And so again, I'll just one last thing. If I click on add collaborators, it takes me to the rule builder. Okay, is there a recommended way to capture RAID log items in Asana for reporting purposes across multiple projects? So I want to make sure I'm understanding RAID is about risk analysis. If there's any way, I'm going to move forward, making sure with the assumption that that's about risk analysis. But if that's wrong, please do just post another question. So what I have seen for risk analysis is using a custom field to track risk. So step one, create a custom field. And this would require training of the team about what defines a risk and when your team member should actually select that risk. So for whatever reason, if this task now becomes high risk, what I recommend is creating another project. We can call this risk analysis. And then we can set up automation so that when someone, I'm going to go back to my Sydney show, when someone says this task is now at risk, I want to add it to my risk analysis project. And again, more automation there. When it's added to the risk analysis project, then I want to add a collaborator, add a subtask, post a comment, take whatever action you want to be able to get notified about this new risk. And then having it in that separate project allows us to see all of the risks across different projects in one project. So I would go to customize, I would go to rules, and I'm going to add a custom rule. I know I'm moving a little bit quick here. And so our trigger is going to be when our risk field is changed. And then this would be for you to decide, do you want it to be all risks? Is it only high risk? So for now, this example, I'm going to say when it's a high risk, then I'm going to add it to that project that I just created called risk analysis. And I'm going to publish that rule. So when I now, let's take another example here, create Salesforce dashboard. This was due yesterday. This is at high risk because it's past due and I am not going to have time to do it in the next week and it might delay our project. So I select this to be high risk. We get our rule running in the background here. I'm going to hop over to my risk analysis project that I just created. And you'll see that that's just appeared in my risk analysis. So again, I've done no setup of this project, but what you would want to do is you could put, like we were doing in our project launch, we could create sections that say new risk under analysis, I can spell here, risk reviewed, needs action, whatever your process might be. This again is a great place to use that workflow tab because this is one task moving through different phases. So it will start in new risk. And then again, we could create additional custom fields to track information. We can go to our workflow tab and add collaborators or post comments so that that risk can be flagged. And we can have this coming from multiple different projects. So we would just set that rule in all the projects where you want to gather those risks together. Great question. That one is a little bit more complex and a little bit more detailed, but that is something that we do with our clients is we help them set up various workflows, different processes, things like assessing risk or creating project templates or setting up dashboards, because what's really important is making sure that data is tracked somewhere in Asana. And so that is why we are here. We want to help you guys set that up. We want to help decrease that work about work. And so feel free to contact us, whether that is using our emails. You can contact Thaisa or myself directly, or I have just posted in the chat a form for you to fill out and contact us. We would love to hear from you. We would love to help you get started with Asana, whether you're using Asana for the first time, we want to onboard your team, or even if you already use Asana and you just need some help auditing and maybe streamlining some processes that didn't kick off as well as you wanted. One more thing I will show, somebody else wanted to see how to convert a task to a project. So before we hang up here, I will walk you through how we did that back in our project launch requests one more time. So this was done via a rule from my project here that I set up. So I can create this rule, and I will show you guys this rule real quickly. The rule itself is that when a task is moved to my section approved, it is taking the action to convert to project from task. So I can either create this rule so that it happens automatically, or if you actually just open up an individual task right here, let's take Eco Impact. This is something that I want to convert into an entire project. You can do that manually by clicking on More, and then you have Convert To, and we're going to convert it to a project. When I select project, it's going to ask me to name it, to select a team, to set the privacy. Do I want to use a template or a blank project? So a couple more things just to specify. Again, from my rule, I already specified that to use a particular template, which is why I didn't have to go through this process earlier. Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We would love to continue helping you. I know I didn't get to all of the questions today. Really appreciate y'all being so engaging and sending in questions. I hope you all learned something. I hope you're inspired to get more into Asana, to streamline work and to get less and less, or I should say to get more and more out of Excel, out of PowerPoint, out of those manual updates, manual statuses and presentations. And encouraging the team to work in the same tool, to collaborate together and get that single source of truth working for all of you. So thank you all for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.